Hello! In this video I've come out to shoot a windmill. No, not that one. I intend to concentrate on just one subject. Let's call it focus. It's about a 30-minute walk from the car through the picturesque landscape of Horsley on the Norfolk Broads. I'm in good time for the setting sun and I'm hoping for some nice skies. The whole idea is to work just one subject, limit myself and find good compositions. Serious limitations here as well. These will become more apparent shortly. So this is a good exercise in making the best of a location, and I highly recommend you try it. I'm being really rather reserved this evening. I've come out with the intention, as you've heard, of one subject, and that's what I'm going to try and stick to. I rarely police myself enough to do that. I got a shot of my subject, which you may be able to see peeking through the trees over here, from, I don't know, a mile back down that way as I turned a corner, and I've got a nice long shot with a little bit of foreground. So I'll show you that one probably later on. This one, really simple. I've just got it peeking through. You probably can't see it on here. Yeah, actually you probably can. There we go. Let me just remove some stuff. Can you see it? I don't know. Anyway, it's just peeking through the gap in these two trees here. Now I'm shooting it with f5.6. I'm at 150mm on the lens, which is 300 equivalent on a full frame. The whole idea of the f5.6 is to really soften that frame around it. It's quite a nice shot, particularly when the light hits it. The framing of this shot really emphasises just how much you need to keep your eyes open and look for compositions like this, because this was a split-second observation, a couple of feet in either direction, and this would not have existed. I was lucky to spot it. If you don't keep your eyes open, you might miss compositions like this. The combination of a shallow depth of field and a further vignette on this really centralises this image, which is also why I've made this into a square crop. Let me know what you think of it. Now I know this footpath quite well, but I haven't been for over a year. The point being that, of course, things change. Growth comes, growth goes. But access is always the issue here. I'm limited by the river. It's too deep to put a tripod into, and the banks are obscured by all of these reeds. There's a few downtrodden areas, but I don't want to go in and tread down more. So I'm very limited in where I can get, and therefore the compositions that I can obtain. This is very much one of those videos where I'm kind of panicking to get the light. Not that the light's really hitting it, but it's just catching there. And you see, in order to get this shot, I'm having to kind of go up so I can get the river and the reflection and do what the heck we can to make sure we get the shot. Now, I've got a polarizer on here, which is doing something. It's not doing a great deal, but it's doing enough. It's just about enough to deal with a little bit of darkness down here and darken the sky a little. Not a great deal, but I quite like it. But this shot, which you can't see from there, but the river is just here, and I've got the river kind of just moving through this. And unusually, I'm going to talk about camera settings. Because right now, because I'm rushing, because I want to get the shot rather than worry too much about the technicalities of everything, I've got it set to auto ISO, and that shot there was 800 ISO. So I ensured that I got, it's around a 60th of a second, and that's crucial because there's no way I can hold this terribly steady up here at this kind of arm's length. It's just not going to work, and I want the shot, and I don't want to muff it up, so I'm prepared to sacrifice a little bit of dynamic range by doing that. But in all honesty, I don't think for 1 second anyone would notice. By the time it's processed, it'll be fine. So you're looking at the raw file. Well, it's a TIFF of the raw file because the video processor won't do raw files. Anyway, The point is that what you're looking at is 200%, and yes, there's a little bit of noise, but remember it's 200%, and I challenge you to tell me that there's too much noise, because there simply isn't. And this is the processed file. Again, 200%, little bit of haloing where I've processed it and I haven't cleaned it up. That's my bad, but it isn't the final image from this shoot, and it's certainly not the best. There's no way you could look at this and tell that it was an 800 ISO shot. Remember, there are so many people out there who will tell you that Micro Four Thirds is no good at higher ISOs or poor light. Well, this wasn't poor light, but it's certainly a high enough ISO. There's nothing wrong with that. Now you may wonder why I wasn't using the tripod earlier. It's just purely speed. Yeah, the sun's moving around quick enough, and I'm panicking a bit because of, I have limited time. I've got to make a video. I've got to take some decent photos to put in the video, because if I don't take decent photos, no one's going to watch it, because no one wants to watch a photographer that can't do his job properly. Here, I'm going to use the tripod because I may need to get a couple of bracketed exposures, and it's a case of really getting this composition right. At the minute I'm wide and I'm getting these weeds in, and perhaps they're not doing too badly. Maybe I want to come up a little, just so I get more of the river going off down here. There's a bit of a kink in the river here. I might even want to come further over here. Now obviously I'm right next to the river here, so there is a degree of concern over the safety of my gear. And because there's that concern, I'm not going to let it go. I'm going to wrap the strap around my hand. Coming further over here is a problem for balance. I want something to balance this right hand side of the shot. So by coming back in a touch, I think perhaps that's better. It's not a perfect composition at all, because we've got the windmill looking kind of out of the frame to the left, and we've got these things kind of curving out of the frame to the right. Like I said in one of the previous videos about keeping things above a horizon, or rather splitting a horizon, it's exactly what we're doing here. The windmill cuts the horizon and brings the lower part of the shot up. In actual fact, it does this very well because there's an opposite reflection in the river as well. That works nicely. And of course, we've got these, and we've also got the river taking our eye through the image. And I'm going to put it onto a bracketed exposure. The problem with brackets on this camera is I can't use the 2-second timer, so I'm going to get a cable release. 3 exposure bracket this, and I've overexposed by 1/3 of the stop to start with, just to make sure that when I get that 2 stop bracket overexposed, I get all of the detail in the brickwork. Why am I not using the grad filter that I've got? Just purely because I'm rushing a little bit too much here. Perhaps I should. I don't know, but I'll tell you something. The sky is getting very, very nice, and I think I may just leave the camera here and wait for that to pink up a little more. Of course, I did a much more sensible thing and took the camera off the tripod so I could go handheld, knowing of course that the tripod still had the composition locked in. So there's another opportunity here a little bit closer to it. I've still got the polarizer on, because it's not doing anything to the sky, but it is playing a little with the foreground reflection. Just right at the very bottom. For a bit of balance, I've just got a bit of this reed sticking in at the bottom corner. This is, again, an HDR, and because I'm reaching up well over my comfort zone, I need to make certain that I don't have shake. And of course, I've got a whole heap of stabilization in the camera, but I'm still not taking any chances with the shot. So that's a that's an ISO 4000 as determined by the camera, so I could get a
a shutter speed of 80th of a second.
When I was shooting this, I didn't realise that the camera was going to adjust the ISO as part of the HDR bracketing. It was in auto ISO, but it makes sense when you think about it. Anyway, I quite like this shot. It's certainly not the strongest of this shoot. Stick around for that. If you'd like to support me, I have prints available of any of the images you see in this video. There's details in the description.
It's a very nice colour here. And all of a sudden I can hear rave music going, dance music coming across the marshes. It's quite unpleasant. Thankfully it appears to have stopped. I'm just getting bitten something chronic here. Now, we might also want a shot with it kind of more central, perhaps looking in. So the sky's pinked up a little bit more now and I quite like it.
Well, for me this is the shot of the evening. But do you like it? Would you like it hanging on your wall? You remember earlier I was concerned about the weeds and the sails kind of just looking out to the edges. I think in the end though, it just pulls the eye into the middle. If you're enjoying the video, please click the like button.
A great deal of the light is now gone and with it also the colours vanishing as well, so I think that's probably the end of the shoot. I'll have a couple more shots to come in a moment and a little bit more discussion on why it's so important to just kind of work on a subject, pick a subject and really kind of work with it. And of course it's a little bit more difficult for me here because I'm limited to really just one side of the river because I can't get over there. Well, I can, but obviously not easily. You can walk to it from a completely different area. Well, I believe you can. There are footpaths marked that run to it on the maps. Never tried it, but perhaps one day I will. But of course, yeah, there's a footpath running just around behind me, and actually it completely stops here. So it stops running by the river further down here and goes back inland into the village. So the angles that you can get on this from land are restricted. So if you're going to go out and do this and pick one subject and really kind of work it, and I do advise you to do, try to make it a subject that perhaps you can get a little bit more access to, rather than dimwit here choosing this. But I haven't been here for some time, so please forgive me. And it's, let's face it, it's wonderful, isn't it? It's a lovely thing to photograph. But you could argue, of course, that the limitations that I have with working this are, make me work even harder. And yeah, perhaps that's true.
This is the shot I got earlier on. I mentioned it earlier in the video. I quite like it, but I have cropped in a little more. There was a tree creeping in on the left hand side. Watch this video for using grad filters and why they're still very useful in this digital age. Click the like button, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. Cheers.